You are watching the Rhoda Wilson Show, and we're delighted to be back again with a brand new series. For the next few weeks, we'll be talking to great guests who are looking to inspire you by telling you all about their businesses and themselves. Also, we have a new section called Opinion Point. This is where the Rhoda Wilson Show is on the streets of London asking the public for their opinions on various questions. So stay tuned. The meaning of success is different for everyone, and Coinstar money transfers certainly have a story to tell. Barry, what is the success story behind Coinstar?
Well, Coinstar began as recently as 2003, originally named TravelX Money Transfer, and it was acquired by Coinstar, which is a US quoted company. Many people may know Coinstar because they supply the coin counting machines that you see in the major supermarket chains, both here and in the USA. And the company has grown from there and has become a major player in global money transfer.
And you're in how many countries? 140 countries?
In total, 140 countries worldwide. We have a presence there, and we're able either to accept payment or to receive payment in those countries.
What is your involvement in Coinstar?
Well, I'm the regional director responsible for the UK, for Ireland, and also for Africa.
And what has been your background?
Well, I began my career in banking.
Really?
I often say to people, I used to be a banker, but then I got better.
That's why you left.
Yeah. And I started my career in Midland Bank, which of course is now HSBC here in the UK.
Yeah.
And then moved on to Thomas Cook, and I worked in Thomas Cook's financial services business for nearly 10 years. And had my first involvement in money transfer at that time. Most recently, I joined Coinstar back in December of last year, and before that I was Senior Regional Director for Europe with MoneyGram. So I've been quite involved in the money transfer industry for some years.
So Barry, what is the typical flow in terms of a transaction, or typical transaction flow, as you say?
Well, typically funds go from, if I may put it that way, from the developed world to the developing world. That's the reality. Often that means from west to east, or from north to south, if you look at it on a global basis.
And so what do I need to do? I mean, I go into an agent. Is there this visible agent? Do they have them everywhere here in London or
well,
in the UK?
We have around 200 agents here in the UK, and quite a concentration of them in London, as you'd expect, because many of our customers are living here in London.
Okay. And so if I go into one of these agents and I fill out the form?
Correct. You fill out a Coinstar money transfer form to send money on the assumption that you're looking to send.
Yeah.
Basically, fill out the form, putting your details and the receiver's details onto the form. The agent will then input the form into our system, and basically you then pay the amount that's required in order to fulfill the transaction.
And is this like the same, like is it real time? I suppose, can you have real time? It's not going to be real time.
It's pretty close to real time. The reality is we say it's a 10-minute service, but the truth is that once the transaction's been released into the system, then it's pretty well available for collection instantaneously.
Okay. And because obviously being an African descendant, I send money to Nigeria, and when you do, you have to have your ID, the person has to have this. So is it do you have to go with your ID to actually do this?
Actually up to a value of around £600, and it varies because of fluctuations in exchange rates, but up to a value of around £600, then typically actually to send a money transfer through Coinstar, you don't need identification. It helps, I think, if you have that. You know, it's a sort of belt and braces approach on the part of some agents.
What about the receiver?
Well, on the receiver's end in Nigeria, you do have to have identification, but that reflects the local requirements in Nigeria. That's not always the case. In many countries, if you have the reference number for the transaction, then actually you can collect without ID. But I guess a prudent agent would look to get ID from you to ensure that the person who's being paid out is the person who's intended to receive the funds.
Okay. And is there any limits to how much I can send, or any individuals can send?
There are limits, and they vary by country.
Okay.
But typically for a homebound remittance, the sort of funds that are sent back to support family, etc. Then the limit wouldn't even come into play. As I say, you can send up to 600 without ID. Beyond that, the daily limit is effectively £3,000.
So,
but again, that's way above what the average person would be sending on a regular basis.
And your typical users are, I suppose, as you say, people sending money back home to support their family for medical reasons, for, I suppose, to pay medical bills and all that. So you'd be like an average man, wouldn't it, really?
Absolutely. And
or woman.
I guess there are two groups of customers, really, who might use the service. One is precisely the group you're describing, which is people who are living outside their country of origin and want to send money home to support their family. And I think it's important. Sometimes the money transfer industry in general, I don't think, makes a terribly strong case for itself. But the truth is,
why?
Well, I just don't feel as though as though we're proactive in getting our message across. But the truth is that, and the government acknowledges this. I've literally heard the Secretary of State for International Development make comment that money transfer goes more directly to address the sources of, or the causes of poverty than any government aid will ever do or could ever do. I mean, this is the reality of the services that we're providing. So yes, it goes back to support education, health and welfare, housing in some cases. The essential needs of life are being supported through funds sent back through companies like Coinstar.
What about money laundering? Because I know with the UK you have to be careful in terms of money laundering, so you have to vet the customers. Is that correct?
Oh yes, and we vet very carefully funds that are sent, and we monitor transactions so that we avoid a situation where somebody sends a large number of small transactions below any money laundering reporting limit. And we have an obligation legally to report if we identify transactions that are considered to be inappropriate or that are considered to be suspicious, and we have to report them back to the Serious Fraud Office. So we take money laundering as and the issue of compliance, which is really what this is all about, very seriously indeed.
Okay, but in fairness though, Barry, not many of the average users would probably fall under that category, because most of them are what? Construction workers, people doing very lowly paid jobs. I'll say, well, not lowly paid jobs, but majority of them probably would. And every penny they earn, they send back home. Isn't that correct? In
many cases, that's true. Yes, yes. It's fair to say that historically, people using services like Coinstar's would not necessarily have a bank account. Yeah. But increasingly today, people do have bank accounts. They have access to other banking services. But they use a service like Coinstar's because it's fast, it's reliable, it's efficient. And the banking system, with the best will in the world, is relatively slow in terms of getting the funds overseas, and also relatively expensive in terms of getting those funds away as well. So our service is, you know what you're going to pay up front. You know, you pay a fee at the time that the transaction takes place, and that's it, basically. The funds will then go to your relative overseas. Okay.
How is technology changing the way Coinstar operates?
Well, it's changed it in the sense that in many cases through our agents, we used to work through a call centre. Our agents would call and make the transaction, but in just about virtually 100% of cases now, the agent actually connects directly into our service. So there's no need for that anymore. And one of the real benefits of that is that the transaction time is reduced significantly. So an average transaction probably takes 2 or 3 minutes now. And if the customer's done a transaction with us before, so we have details on our system, then actually it can be less than 2 minutes from start to finish to undertake the transaction. Okay. But when we were working through the call centre, that could be quite an extended process, as you can imagine.
Oh, I could definitely imagine indeed. What about the currency? Can they receive any currency in the because obviously when I send money to Nigeria, you have the option of naira or dollars.
It depends on the country, but as you say, in the case of Nigeria, yes, you can send naira or you can send dollars. It's essentially your option. There are some countries, a very limited number, in which you can send sterling.
Oh, really?
Effectively, yes, and sterling will be paid out at the other end of the transaction. But in the majority of cases, we either pay out in local currency, or we pay out in US dollars, or we pay out in both, as in the case of Nigeria.
Really?
So the choice is there for the consumer.
That's good. When I was in Dubai, Barry, talking about going back to technology, because I just remember when I was in Dubai, people were talking about the mobile phone is going to be the next big thing, whereby all I need to do is say, hey, Coinstar, I want to give money to my brother there, and they can use mobile phone to transact such transactions. I mean, is that something that you do?
No, it's not something that we do at the moment. It's something that we're watching very carefully, because it is a technology that's evolving, and we're sure that there's going to be a place for mobile technology in terms of the money transfer at some point in the future. Quite where we are at this stage, I think, is open to debate. But there is a very successful trial taking place in Kenya at the moment for local transactions, relatively low value, to be sent mobile to mobile. As I say, that's proving quite successful, and that's been developed in conjunction with Vodafone, amongst others.
Oh wow, that is great. Because also I saw when we were doing our research, obviously we saw that you are able to provide a service of calling people when using the mobile phone. I suppose that's a way of using technology, really, if you think about it.
Well, it's actually it's a text message that we send. So basically, once the transaction has been paid out, then we confirm that by text message back to the sender. It's just an additional service that we felt had value, and I have to say our customers, generally speaking, like it.
Okay. But do you charge extra for that service?
No. It's part of the cost of sending the money in the first place. So there's no additional cost.
And in terms of sending money, you're talking about outbound. What about coming from UK to Africa? Because I suppose that is where most people would go send money, I suppose, unless if you're other part of the world. What about outbound? People traveling from Nigeria, not traveling, people sending money from Nigeria to England. Can they do that via...
Not at the moment, no, because the Nigerian authorities actually don't allow funds to be sent. That said, there are a number of countries in Africa that have become quite active in terms of sending money. Many of them in the CFA zone. So some of the countries like Ivory Coast, for example, Cameroon, are quite active now, and funds are being sent readily from those countries. And the situation in Nigeria, which actually mirrors the situation in Ghana as well. Really? Both countries you can't send at the moment. But I'm sure that will change over time. That situation will change. Often it changes when exchange control regulations are removed in countries. So it really is a government issue and not one that we can influence at the moment.
Okay, that is great. Barry, we're going to take a break. I've got lots of questions to ask you, and I'm sure everybody, because obviously we're going to come into that seasonal moment where people need to send money back home. So we'll be talking more with you, so please don't go away. This is me, Rhoda Wilson, so we're going to take a break, so please do not go away.